Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Double A Team podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Negishi, and with me, as always, is my co-host from the sports blog Awful Announcing. It is the associate editor, Ken Fang. Ken, how are you?
Good. How are you, Stephen? Good to be on with you.
Good. It's finally April, and it looks as though the winter cold is finally gotten past us in some areas. Unfortunately, one of our guests tonight that I'm doing a little bit later, draft expert John Vogel, is in an area where they're experiencing some tornado watch or tornado warnings right now. So, we wish John and his family to, stay safe. It's in some areas, unfortunately, you still see some blizzards and tornadoes, so that definitely impacts their, broadband, Wi-Fi, and as well as the, their livelihoods. So we wish everybody, in those, areas, the eyes of the storm to stay safe, and that will hopefully be able to, offer some sort of a respite
Yes,
in times of like this, Ken.
absolutely. We've heard that actually at my job today, where I work, I got some phone calls from people who are preparing for the storm. Apparently, in the path of it in the Pennsylvania, Ohio area. So
Yeah.
we certainly hope those of you that are in the affected areas, please be safe. Please don't do anything silly out there by trying to go out during the storm. Stay down inside. And if you're able to watch us online right now or perhaps later, we certainly hope you do so in a safe area.
Mm-hmm. And we also have a important announcement regarding the show, Ken.
Yes. So upcoming in the next month or so, we'll
Yep.
be probably going a different day. Usually we do Mondays. Of course, last week we had a situation where we had to change the day, and today, because of the Caitlin Clark game, I wanted to watch that last night, so we decided to postpone it till today. But coming up, we will be changing the day, and we will let you know on our social media platforms when Stephen
Yes.
and I get that squared down and a concrete day and a date and time. We
Mhm.
will let you know. The last few weeks, and I can see our viewership going up tonight right now as we currently speak. We thank you for watching us here on our live stream, whether it be on X/Twitter or on YouTube. We thank you very much for joining us. But we will let you know what day will be our live stream. Probably be around the same time, 7 o'clock Eastern time, 4 o'clock Pacific time. So we will let you know. You see Steven's social media platform, which on X, his handle is Asian Sports Fan 1, the number
Mhm.
one. I am Fang's Bites. Whether you can find me on, that's my handle, both on X, X and Twitter, the same thing. X, uh, Facebook, I have a Fangs Bites page there, and also on Instagram, Fangs Bites. So you can find. We'll make an announcement, and also on Threads, and I'm also on Blue Sky, also at Fangs Bites. So you can find me on there as well. No matter what social media platform you're on, we will let you know what day and what time will be our concrete time for the next few months.
Yeah, it's only short temporarily ones as of right now. It's going to be affected starting next week, maybe until the end of May. So we're definitely going to unfortunately have to find a common date and time. Could be done on the weekends as well. So I hope that fans will be still kind enough to tune in on us. And I'm also with the NFL draft coming up in this month. We're going to ramp up some real good guests, draft experts, locally and nationally, to talk about the Bears and the NFL draft as well. So, hopefully you'll tune in to our YouTube channel. We will post the information ahead of time, and then also on our X Twitter as well. All right.
Yes.
Well, Ken, listen, we got a lot to talk about, and obviously the biggest news over from the weekend has to be the NCAA tournament. We finally have the Final Four for both man and woman. And we wanted to kind of reach out to you and your honest perspective on how the game it was, and also from a media coverage standpoint.
Well, CBS and TBS had a great weekend. Of course, with Duke losing, all of America really enjoyed that. I'm just being facetious. I know. I mean, Duke is like not well liked, but of course, when you have Duke on, people are going to watch and they're going to enjoy
Sure.
them losing, kind of like the people like to watch the Cowboys lose in the NFL or the Yankees losing in Major League Baseball. They played a very good game against North Carolina State, which, Stephen, they're on an amazing run. I watched them in the ACC tournament early in March, and they went on this amazing run. And of course, they did that in Washington, in the same area where the 1983 Cardiac Wolfpack, led by Jim Valvano, and also won the national championship that year, went on an amazing run. So they're on this amazing run. They go all the way to the Final Four. They beat some good quality teams, including Duke, and they did a fantastic job. I have to say, it's been absolutely wonderful watching this team. They're playing with a lot of joy. You kind of wish that this type of joy would translate to the U.S. soccer team, but anyway, that's a little joke between Stephen and I, where we'll talk about them later. But I have to say that North Carolina State is absolutely fantastic. They're a really fun team to watch. I don't know if they're going to be able to equal what they're going to be able to do. They're going to be taking on a very tough Purdue team, but the way that they're playing right now, Stephen, they're playing with the house money right now. They're playing loose. They're playing with a lot of joy, and that's exactly what you want to see in college basketball.
Yeah, absolutely. North Carolina has been on an incredible run. This team was actually a 3-pointer away at the buzzer against Virginia in the ACC tournament from not even making the tournament.
That's right.
Right. And then, here we are, 5 wins in 5 nights in the ACC tournament, 11 seed, and basically just have defied odds against everyone. And, for a man who was considered to be on the sort of a hot seat, their head coach, Kevin Keats. Is that Kevin Keats or Kevin Stotts? I'm trying to remember. Damn, sorry.
Kevin Keats, yeah.
So, they have been on quite a run. And it's an incredible Kevin Keats, that is. My apologies there. And it's interesting because he was actually considered to be someone on the hot seat, and now he has basically exceeded expectations and has been getting a lot of bonuses and an automatic extension that kicked in because of this run.
Yes, and he because of the ACC tournament run, a 2-year extension automatically kicked in. This is a team that lost its last 4 regular season games going into the ACC tournament, and then all of a sudden they went on this magical run. And as you mentioned, it was that 3-pointer that went in to tie the game against Virginia in the ACC semifinals that propelled them. And then the only way they were going to get in the NCAA tournament, Stephen, was them to beat North Carolina, and that's exactly what they did. So hats off to them. I mean, this is a team that, as I mentioned, is playing with house money. They are loose. They are playing with a lot of joy. It's been fun to watch them. And when they beat Duke, and they did it rather handily, Stephen, they did play with no fear. And I have a feeling that's what they're going to have to do against Zach Edey, who's going to be the tallest guy that they faced all season long. Although they had Obeko is similar. They managed to neutralize him in the ACC tournament. They're going to have to take on Zach Edey, who is Purdue is trying to do what Virginia did a few years back when they lost to a number 16 seed the year before, and then parlayed that into a national championship run. That's what Virginia did in 2019. Now, Purdue is hoping to do the same thing, but they're going to have to take on North Carolina State, which is playing extremely well. And the other game, of course, you have UConn, the beating everybody, going on a 30-0 run in its East Regional Final on Saturday. And don't forget that they were practically tied before the going on that 30-0 run on Saturday, Stephen. And right now, unless 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 UConn falters, or somehow if Purdue gets in, I think they have a good shot of winning. Actually, to be honest with you, but right now, UConn has to be considered the favorite again.
Yeah, absolutely. As an Illini fan, watching at a bar was just painful. I left the game after one of the timeouts after they kind of blitzed the hell out of Illinois around maybe 20-0, and I knew that it was over. So I walked out of there and I made a good decision there, because it would have been miserable in hopes that the Illini were able to come back. And, but UConn, unfortunately, is on another level. You're right. As one of the few, people, Illini fan, who's been somewhat critical and harsh on their head coach, Brad Underwood's ability to adjust in the game. We kind of give UConn an easy time. There's no question. We were not shooting the ball well on that Elite Eight game. Donald, Klingen, the lottery pick, massive center. We had no answers for their size. It was just a mismatch. We were just going after Klingen for whatever reasons, and just wasn't able to make the shots in the paint as well. And then the shooting was just absolutely horrendous all day, and just it was just so heartbreaking, because it took them 19 years to get to Elite Eight. That was also the year that they finished runner-up against North Carolina. So I'm just hoping that it won't have to be another 20 years before Illini get back to that level of stage again. But again, UConn, the defending champions, they haven't been really. I don't think they've been really tested that much.
They have not. No, they've been winning by an average of. They beat Illinois by 25 points.
And Illinois is a good team. There's no question.
There's no question. I mean, I'm not saying Illinois is not a good team at all. To get to the Elite Eight takes a lot of accomplishment, and I think at the end of when there's some separation,
sure.
I think that definitely the Fighting Illini, the team, and Brad Underwood will bask in the fact that they got that far. The Elite Eight, and any coach will tell you, the Elite Eight game is the toughest game to win in the NCAA tournament, whether it's the men's or the women's, because that's the game that gets you to legendary status. You lose that game, no one remembers that you got to the Elite Eight. I mean, no, that's not
especially when you lose that. If you lose by that much,
exactly. I mean, I don't want to say that it's not an accomplishment. It absolutely is. Providence College has been trying to live off their last appearance in the Elite Eight for the last 20 years. Hats off to them for trying to live in the past. But let me just say this, that the Illini, I think they're definitely going, and when they have a chance to reflect after the hurt is gone, they'll bask in the fact that, yes, we had a very good run. Getting to the one game short of the Final Four, but it's going to hurt right now. I totally understand that, and but you have to give your hat off to the Illini, who got all the way to the Elite Eight against a buzzsaw in UConn.
Yeah, it doesn't look like they cannot be stopped. It's going to be very, very interesting. How they face. It's they're playing. Jesus, I'm trying to remember. It's the match. UConn is facing Alabama. Okay, yeah. Alabama, which is an interesting story, obviously, because we know Alabama has always been the football program.
Yeah,
and that Nate Oates is done a very good job since he took over that program. It's SEC certainly has not had a good tournament this year. And, you had Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, complaining about the lack of, the tournament spots for big programs like his, which we touched on last week, as a nothing more than a sour grapes. But Alabama certainly at least has done SEC proud. I tell you, they don't have a lot of so-called blue chippers, or maybe like an NBA talent like they had with I'm trying to remember Brandon Miller, who plays with the Charlotte Hornets and was actually drafted second overall in last year's draft. But they play very, very well. It's a reflection of Nate Oates' style. Grant Nelson really had a very big game in the Sweet 16. I think this is going to be a very important matchup. For both Alabama and UConn, because but certainly right now UConn is on a collision course. It looks to be like, on paper, with another number one seed, Purdue. It's going to be very interesting. I think UConn is on another level, as we witnessed with the Elite Eight's thrashing of Illinois. But, Alabama has certainly done very, very well to get here. Beating another Cinderella team in Clemson in the Elite Eight. So it's a very, very interesting a matchup for Alabama. Danny Hurley versus Nate Oates is an interesting coaching matchup as well. And then the other team, of course, Purdue. Purdue is finally, after losing so many first-round games as a high seed, they finally got their monkey off their back, and they're in the Final Four, which I think, if you've asked me, they should have done that maybe perhaps a year or two ago, but things don't always happen the way it was intended to be. But now this is this is probably their biggest opportunity with Zach Edey going out as a senior. This is his one last shot.
Absolutely. I mean, here's a team that is on a redemption tour after losing to Fairleigh Dickinson last year. It's a team that has definitely underachieved. There's no doubt about that. Purdue has been chronically known as an underachiever, even going back to when Bobby Knight was the coach at Indiana. He used to joke about that a lot. He used to pick on Purdue, of course, being in the same state as Indiana and big rivalries with the Indiana Hoosiers. But Purdue has, of course, had the upper hand most recently, and it is good to see that Zach Edey and Purdue has been able to turn around the narrative after losing to Fairleigh Dickinson last year. Even though they did lose in the Big Ten tournament in the semifinals, Stephen, I think this is a great chance for Purdue and actually, I think that was a very good thing for them. They were riding high. They thought they were perhaps going to win another Big Ten title, but they lost in the semifinals, and I think that was good. It humbled them. And not only that, it got them ready to go for their first round game, and they have been playing extremely well. Now they're in the Final Four. They're taking on a North Carolina State team, which I think is going to give them a very good battle. And I think the way that North Carolina State is playing, they can actually win this game. But I'm going to say that Purdue's going to be winning and win it very close. They're going to eke out a win, ending NC State's run in the Final Four. But Zach Edey and Purdue. John Rothstein at CBS Sports Network said that they were in the depths of purgatory. The fans in the depths of purgatory going all the way through. He said that in order for them to truly redeem themselves, they have to win. But I think they've done that. To get to the Final Four, they've already redeemed themselves from last year. So I think they've done a great job, and I think they would definitely be a favorite taking on North Carolina State on Saturday.
Yeah, Zach Edey is as I was expecting, as I suspected. He is a Asian, originally from Canada, born in Toronto.
Yes.
His mother was born to a Chinese immigrant in Toronto, and his father is actually white. For those who were wondering, he's a 7'4" guy. Not exactly what you call a Victor Wembanyama type skills by any chance, despite the heights and similarities and stuff like that. He's somewhat expected to be a high draft pick, because I know I saw somewhere on Twitter about the NBA scouts and executives are saying this is probably the worst, NBA draft in forever, or it could be in their lifetime, because of the lack of talent, unfortunately. And to be honest, Zach Edey on any other year, maybe even last year or the year before, he probably would have been either a fringe first round pick or maybe in the second round. So obviously, but he is a great talent. It will be very interesting to see how he does in the Final Four starting this Saturday, and God forbid if they are able to advance into the championship round with either Alabama or Connecticut. It will be very, very interesting. A matchup between UConn's a big man, Donald Klingen, and then Zach Edey. That's something that I think a lot of basketball fans would be very, very Donovan Klingen.
Right.
A big guy, who's considered to be a lottery pick if he comes out of the draft later this year, and the matchup between Klingen versus Edey will be certainly an interesting one. Edey has a size advantage, but Klingen certainly is a more of a well-versed player, can shoot the three, and is also very, very good passer in the paint as well. So very, very interesting matchup. I'm very, very excited about looking forward to this matchup on Saturday. Maybe they might, surprise, Alabama and North Carolina. They certainly have maybe one more trick up in their sleeves, despite being an underdog. North Carolina has made it this far. Like you said, they're playing on a house money, so they got nothing to lose. And, if, DJ Burns has been a great story for North Carolina State, big guy. I know a lot of NFL people are celebrating the idea of him becoming like an offensive lineman out there. But very interesting to see how Evans and the North Carolina guys will certainly play. DJ Burns and the North Carolina State Wolfpack plays, because it's going to be a fun game to watch, and I think no matter what happens, I think hopefully we can look back and say, yeah, that was a great game. And I hope it will not be like a total blowout where the game is over by early second half and then the reserves are all emptied out of the bench or something like that.
Right. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that. Also, as we mentioned, the women's Final Four was decided. South Carolina, a great story, 37-0, gets to the Final Four, going to the end, and winning their regional in the Albany Regional on Sunday, I'm sorry. And then they also are going on against, and also interesting, North Carolina State will be their opponents.
Right.
North
Carolina, both men and women are represented. Wow.
And same with the UConn men and women, and we'll get into that. But so South Carolina winning, they won another close game. It wasn't very easy for them, but I got to say, winners, sometimes when you're going to a national championship, you're going to have some difficult games. South Carolina got the job done. And then North Carolina State winning their game in the Portland region. And then Monday, interest was at an all-time high, and we'll get into that in just a second. But Iowa avenged their loss last year against LSU. Caitlin Clark scoring 41 points, taking over the game. And then you had UConn with Paige Beckers taking on USC's Juju Watkins. Another fantastic matchup. This is star power that, Stephen, that the men's game have been looking for. They haven't been. It's something that the men's tournament hasn't been able to buy in a while. But when you have those four big stars, and Caitlin Clark, as we all know, has already declared for the NBA, for the WNBA draft. You had Angel Reese on LSU, also with Kim Mulkey as the coach of LSU as well. Angel Reese may also go to the WNBA. She will decide that in the next few days. And then you also have Paige Beckers, who has already declared that she will stay at UConn, even though that she could have also gone to the WNBA draft. However, because she was injured last year, she had a very she tore her ACL. She rehabbed, came back even better, and outdueled Juju Watkins. So it'll be a very exciting Final Four on Friday, as I mentioned. South Carolina against North Carolina State, the early game on ESPN. Interestingly enough, South Carolina is kind of being overshadowed by Caitlin Clark and the Paige Beckers matchup. South Carolina, North Carolina State will be the early matchup on Friday on ESPN at 7:00 Eastern time. And then in the late game, it'll be Iowa and UConn. And you have those great personalities with Caitlin Clark, Paige Beckers, UConn coach Gino Auriemma going to his 23rd on an unprecedented 23rd Final Four. That's no other coach is ever going to match that, Stephen. And UConn is going to try and spoil the party, the Iowa party, of them trying to go to a second straight national championship. So that's going to be a lot of fun to watch on Friday. And I tell you, there was a lot of people interested in this matchup last night, Stephen. When you have NPR, which doesn't cover sports at all, when you have NPR covering the matchup on Morning Edition and on All Things Considered, their afternoon show going in on Monday, you know that this is transcended sports.
Yeah, absolutely. Yesterday's game, I only, to be honest, caught toward the end of it. It was simply amazing that the 12.3 million viewership on a LSU Iowa game. Obviously, it was a lot of so-called bad blood between two programs. Stemming from Angel Reese versus Caitlin Clark, and we saw the ugliness about the race stuff here in America, unfortunately. It was a great matchup. But unfortunately, the game itself leading up to this was somewhat marred because of the, Kim Mulkey going off against the media members leading up to this matchup. There was supposedly a bombshell article that was supposed to come out against her from Washington Post. But then, the article turned out to be, not much of a bombshell against Kim Mulkey. It was somewhat, tame article.
It was
I haven't read it yet, to be honest. I'll be honest. I haven't read that article. But people say it was somewhat of a fair, balanced, and somewhat of a tamer article against Kim Mulkey.
I read it. I read the story. It was basically a profile. They did for 2 years the Post has been trying to talk with Kim Mulkey. Mulkey spun it and would say, "Oh, they tried to talk to me 6 days before the game." Yes, they've been trying to contact you for 2 years, and yes, they tried to contact you before the game to have a chance to talk and talk about some of the things that were in the article, which included the fact that she's been estranged from her father for 37 years, also estranged from her sister for the last 6 years. But it wasn't unfair. It wasn't a hit piece, as Kim Mulkey has said. It was a fair article. It was done quite well. It just didn't have Kim Mulkey's response. It had response from her lawyers, representatives, but overall, it got to talk to her father. It talked to her sister. It talked to some of the former players that have been with her, whether at Baylor, and also some other past coaches and people who know her. So it's a well-researched article, Stephen. So I'm going to have to say that was it? No. Was it a bad article? No. Was it well-researched? Yes, it was well reported, and if you have a chance, the Washington Post has it out on its website, so you can talk about that. Also, there was the article written by I forgot the person's name already, but
Ben Bolch, I believe.
Okay, he wrote this article in the Los Angeles Times saying that this game between Iowa and LSU was good versus evil, saying Iowa was basically the good team and LSU was full of villains. It basically played on race, Stephen, and that's unnecessary. And Kim Mulkey was angry about that article. She was very justified to do so, and
Right.
also Angel Reese was also quite angry about it as well. She kind of played it off by saying we're the good villains, but when you have a guy, and this is a person who doesn't watch women's college basketball, he just chose to write a very stupid article.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, it was basically a bit board on race, and whether he's apologized for it ever since. But that article,
the damage is done, unfortunately.
you can't you just it's an article that never should have been written in the first place. Luckily, to credit them, Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese have not taken the bait on this. They have not fallen into the trap of the race baiting. They have basically have said that they have respect each other. And at the end of last night's game, when Iowa defeated LSU to go on to the Final Four this Friday, you can see the respect between both teams. You can see the respect that Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark had. They embraced, and Angel Reese said, "Hey, go win it." That's mutual respect right there, and credit to both of them for not taking the bait of the article, or even just taking the bait all season long for trying to get into war of words. Caitlin Clark has always praised Angel Reese. Angel Reese has always praised Caitlin Clark, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah, absolutely. LA Times had a massive layoff not too long ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they did.
Yes. I don't know if it was earlier this year or probably toward the end of last year. And unfortunately, poor journalism pays its price. And Ben Bolch obviously took to Twitter and offered his apologies. And, as much as I think you and I and everybody despise Kim Mulkey's abrasiveness on and off the field, you don't want to give people like Mulkey an extra motivation or, an ammo that I wrote there for attacking media members, because obviously it's somewhat petty and also, downright embarrassing at times, the attitude that the Mulkey has shown throughout her entire career. So, this is what happens when you don't have people around, probably from an editorial perspective, there wasn't any oversight, or maybe there wasn't enough, checks being done before publishing these types of articles. So, it's unfortunate. Obviously it's a black eye to the LA Times and the guy who wrote it, certainly having to apologize for it. And, again, you don't want to give people like Mulkey extra motivations to go after media, because, once Mulkey starts to go off on her rants and stuff like that, then also Mulkey sometimes even run even more danger of turning off people when, you don't need to. And then you just let people like Ben Bolch embarrass themselves, and then having to, retract and, remodify the articles in some ways,
Absolutely. And it's something that Bolch, as you mentioned, has apologized for, but again, something he never should have written. He doesn't watch women's college basketball, and the ignorance shown there also came out. And I also want to do a quick, I don't want to play the video, Stephen, but I'm just going to mention this real quickly. Paul Pierce appeared on Undisputed today on FS with Skip Bayless. And I retweeted this and I put it on my account. We're not going to play the video because it's just stupid. Paul Pierce saying, "Oh, Caitlin Clark, a white girl defeating the black girls on the court. I got to give her credit for that. I mean, have you watched the women's college basketball game all year? Have you even bothered to watch? Why do you even make this type of statement? Caitlin Clark is respected. I mean,
right. That's
even about that is just dumb. So
yeah, exactly.
the least we mention of it, the better. But I just want to say that that just some of the ignorance comments that we have seen in this NCAA tournament, and even beyond, even before that, in regards to Caitlin Clark and in regards to women's basketball in general, has been just absolutely piss poor, Stephen.
It is. You mentioned I posted about women's tournament. Let me respell there right there. Women's tournaments has been somewhat overshadowed by NCAA's incompetence. A couple of nights ago, I believe it was at NC State in Texas, right, in the Elite Eight game. The 3-point shot was in an incorrect spot. This was found just before the game, and credit to both NC State and Texas for handling it maturely. They played on despite the incorrect 3-point locations.
And what's interesting about that, Stephen, is that nobody noticed. It took a fan to notice that, and actually, once it was pointed out, you could see the difference in the 3-point lines on the court at the Moda Center in Portland. This is, and instead of taking responsibility, the NCAA threw the contractor under the bus for doing that. I mean, first of all, yes, the contract is wrong, but once you put the court down, it's your responsibility and the NCAA's responsibility to ensure that the court is correct. And they didn't do that. And it happened for basically, if I'm not mistaken, 4 or 5 games. 5 games. They, of course, unlike the men's tournament, they had Portland had 4 regional semifinal games, and then the Texas NC State game, which was the regional final, that was played on Sunday. That is just absolutely incompetent, as you mentioned, by the NCAA. Really bad job, and I don't think this would happen with the men. I really don't, and it's just really another way for the women's tournament, which has just given equal footing just now with the men's tournament. And we saw the inequities over the last couple that have been improved over the last couple of seasons with accommodations, locker room facilities, branding, which wasn't even given the equal branding with the men's tournament. It's finally happened over the last couple of seasons, Stephen. But to be honest with you, the NCAA continues to treat the women's tournament as a bastard stepchild.
Right. And then even before that incident, I'm going to share you a horrific news about.
Oh yeah, what happened
Utah's women's basketball
in Idaho with the I think it was do you have the article there, Stephen? I forget which teams were in Idaho that were playing.
It was Utah women's basketball team.
There were a couple of teams.
They were facing Gonzaga. They were staying in Idaho, even though the game was played in Spokane, Washington, yes.
And they were staying because I don't know what the NCAA was doing, but they made them stay 30 miles away from Gonzaga instead of staying in the native Spokane or even closer. And Coeur d'Alene has been known for a lot of right wing activities.
Right, the Aryan movement of some sort of thing, right? Yes.
Yes, and unfortunately, the Utah women were followed by one person, and
actually, I think it was like in a truck. They were, being followed by a car. Yeah, they were followed in a truck as they were leaving to probably go to dinner or something.
Yeah.
Right here. Here we go.
And this person yelled racial slurs at them, and that's not. You want to make first of all. Why they were staying in Coeur d'Alene, I don't know. I mean, that's really bad for the NCAA to book them in a hotel 30 miles away. And the team should have been staying much closer to that, maybe 10 miles, maybe 5 miles away from the arena. But a bad job by the booking there by forcing the teams. I think there was another team that also stayed in Coeur d'Alene, also had a similar incident. The coach of Utah was asked about it, and she was handled very classily. She said, I don't want to talk about it. The girls have been dealing with it. We're trying to deal with it. But she could have blasted the NCAA, Stephen. And really, the NCAA should be blasted for really treating the women and putting the women not in a safe place for them to stay closer to the game.
Right. This is where journalism has to function. We criticize about Ben Bolch's, racially fueled article about UCLA versus LSU. This is where, journalism has to, I don't want to say make its money, but this is where they have to really kind of, question the NCAA leadership from, playing at a town that is known for right wing and then white supremacist, movements in Idaho, and then having to play, with the incorrect 3-point lines and stuff like that. We've seen with women staying at a substandard hotels with lack amenities and training equipments in the past compared to men, not too long ago. And it's ironic that even with the a record viewership and the inroads that the women's game has made, it seems as though NCAA doesn't seem to have the energy and the awareness to correct these types of problems. It's unfortunate that this happened, and I'm thankful that this never really gotten uglier as it seems. But in this day and age, it's unfortunate that it could get ugly. There's no question about that. And NCAA has a lot of a lot to answer, and they cannot half-ass this, because this is a terrible, terrible look for the NCAA as it tries to profit from a women, the popularity of obviously Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, and Paige Bruckers, etc., etc. This is not a good look if they want to prove that they care about the women's game both on and off the court.
Absolutely. And let me also say this about the women's tournament. A new contract was made with ESPN, and there was talk that they were going to separate the women's tournament from the entire contract and possibly get more money for the women's game to possibly invest back into the women's tournament. The NCAA chose not to do that. They chose to keep and bundle the NCAA women's tournament along with the other NCAA championships. Now, the men's tournament has been separate. That's why CBS and TNT Sports have been able to have this partnership, because it's always been separate from the other NCAA championships. But the NCAA elected to bundle the rest of the championships together. ESPN has that contract, so therefore that's why you see all the other championships that the NCAA has on ESPN, like the volleyball, the soccer, hockey, gymnastics, baseball, softball. All of that is under one contract. Even the NCAA Division II and Division III football championships, those are bundled in with that same contract. So ESPN has that. They pay a certain amount of rights fees, and there was talk and studies were done, and there was hope before the contract was signed earlier this year that the NCAA would separate those some of the major sports from the minor sports, and at least allow the women's tournament to stand on its own. Instead, the NCAA decided to keep the status quo, and the left a lot of money on the table.
Right.
And instead, ESPN signed a contract with the NCAA for a modest gain.
Yeah.
And this is just really, I mean, as great as ESPN has done, I give them credit. They've done a great job covering the women's tournament over the last couple of years, especially with Caitlin Clark and South Carolina and Don
Angel Reese at LSU, and also
they've done a great job with it the last couple of seasons. And they're not going to say, "Hey, look, if you're going to keep the contract the same and give it and not have us to spend more money, we'll be more than happy to sign that contract." So I don't fault ESPN there, but I fault the NCAA for not giving the NCAA women's tournament, especially now that they know that there's interest in women's college basketball. And I don't think you're going to put the genie back in the bottle. I think there's going to continued interest in women's basketball, especially in the next few years, Stephen. With the star power that the women's game is going to have in college and both the college and the pro level,
right.
The NCAA really has to think about unbundling the women's tournament when the new contract ends in 2032. Really a bad job by the NCAA, and again, typical of their incompetence as an organization.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. NCAA is kind of facing a reckoning, obviously, with the college football conference realignment, and which makes NCAA somewhat irrelevant. If football starts to treat NCAA like an organization that's certainly on their obstacle or roadblock, I can imagine college basketball doing the same. Um, that the conference realignment impacts both college football and basketball because they both make significant amount of money.
Right.
You can't have basketball and football have a separate organization. Now Big Ten and obviously SEC are leading the way, and they could certainly have their own league and their own set of rules. So that makes NCAA irrelevant or outdated. There's no question about that. The NILs and the way they've certainly handled things, and then and everything, always NCAA gets a lot of criticism, and to a degree, rightfully so. This tournament has kind of brought everything about wrong, what is wrong with the NCAA and its own existence. So, hopefully that there are people will start to question NCAA and its legitimacy and its own legacy moving forward, given that they have done absolutely nothing to this state in regards to releasing statements on the wrong three-pointer lines, and then also Utah women's basketball facing racist threats and everything, so forth. All right, Ken. I'm going to try and wrap it up a little bit on the personal level. As a Bears fan, the media has been somewhat, going after Caleb Williams of USC, who is expected to be the first overall pick. Caleb Williams obviously has been, getting a lot of attention off the field with his, crying with his family on the stands. His obviously painting nails, and then recently he was seen attending the women's tournament, watching his alma mater USC, where he was seen here, vibing to, I believe, Earth, Wind, and Fire, and then people were freaking out over the color of his phone, which is pink, and it's like with this guy, there's always something, and then somebody actually put in the Chicago Bears fight song over there, but. It's funny. It was done by Adam Abdallah, which is a radio host and producer with the ESPN Chicago. But I got to tell you, it's kind of ridiculous how a lot of people are so freaking out over painting nails and having a like a pink color phone and stuff like that. And now, to his credit, I'm going to play a video here about here he is with a one of the trainers about the whole incident.
Well, it's been a long week for you. Lucky you got me though. Let's see what that phone looks. What the phone look like? Let's see what color the phone.
Wallet white.
The wallet's white.
Phone is pink. Case is clear.
What the fingernails look like?
Nails are clear. Lips are pink. Your girl love them.
Now, to his credit, I give him a lot of credit that he's able to laugh it off and have a in a humorous way. He's handling it very, very well. Mature beyond his age, and it's funny. Like I don't want to stereotype or categorize people who are getting pissed off about this whole notion of him painting nails and them some sort of girly stuff. But I'll bet you, Ken, that the people who are upset about this, with what Caleb Williams is doing are probably the same people who probably watched the hair metal bands in the 80s and 90s, with that incredible wigs and makeups. I mean, those are the same people who probably watched or them perform at some point, whether on TV or even attending concerts. And now somehow 20, 30 years later, it's a somewhat of a social no-no for some reason, Ken.
Well, I didn't know much about this story, but I will say the people who have more problems with Caleb Williams are probably having more are basically that tells you more.
They have their own social, probably like their own security issues or something.
Yeah, it says more about them than it says about Caleb Williams. It looks like Caleb Williams, it seems to me, Stephen, seems to be comfortable in his own skin, and that's
exactly.
fine.
Exactly.
And the people who don't have, who are expressing their discomfort, that's on them. Okay.
Exactly.
I don't think if Caleb Williams wins a Super Bowl with the let's say the Bears do draft him, it's probably going to happen. But let's say he wins a Super Bowl, no one's going to care about the color of his fingernails. He's going to be bought dinner at every single Chicago restaurant for the rest of his life.
Exactly.
So, and everyone's going to say, "Hey, your fingernails! Look at my fingernails; they look great. Don't they look great, Caleb?" And Caleb
exactly.
So you know what? It's just again, it's more. It says more about them than it says anything about Caleb Williams.
Right.
I think I think Caleb Williams is a free spirit, and I think that's great for the game because we don't want all people to be just the same and be
exactly
the same thing. We want characters in the game. We haven't had a lot of characters in the game recently because of the media, because exactly of this, because of their reaction. But give credit to Caleb Williams for doing what he wants to be, and hey, if he wants to paint his fingernails, if he wants to paint his eyelids, if he wins a Super Bowl in Chicago, no one's going to care about this.
Exactly. And people forget that, I was listening to ESPN Chicago today. They brought this up, and then they also talked about Dennis Rodman, who was the original freak. We all remember what Rodman did with wearing wedding dresses, for promoting his books and stuff like that. Those are the same people growing up watching him when they were in their teens, and now as they're adults, now they get get really, really sensitive about what Caleb Williams puts on his nails and stuff like that. Jeez Louise, get over him, man.
Yeah, and Steven, now that 20 years later, do people have a problem with Dennis Rodman with the things that he did back then? No. Because he won 3 championships in Chicago with the Bulls, and nobody cares.
Exactly. Well, on that note, Ken, thank you very much as always for very spirited conversations about sports, and I appreciate everybody watching tonight mostly through Ken's X Twitter handle, and then almost 100 people, and we're very, very excited that there are a lot of people who are starting to follow us on our channels, and hopefully we will give you an update on our timeline on the next show from starting next week all the way until May. Obviously, I have personal stuff that I have to take care of during that time, but as always, please make sure to follow us on Twitter, and formerly Twitter, and on X, and also make sure to subscribe our channel on our YouTube channel. For Ken Fang of Awful Announcing, I am Stephen Negishi. We say good night, and we hope to see you again next week. And please make sure to follow us on our Twitter X on the updates on our next show. Good night, everybody.
Have a good night, and we'll see you. We'll see you next week, and we'll let you know what's going on with our show, our live streams going forward. Thank you very much for watching.